At Singapore's Shangri-La Dialogue, the Philippines and Japan openly challenged China's accusations of militarism as rising South China Sea tensions, expanding military alliances, and warnings over regional security exposed the deepening power struggle shaping the future of the Indo-Pacific and raised urgent questions about stability, sovereignty, and deterrence across Asia. The Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore once again became the center of major security discussions across the Indo-Pacific, bringing together defense ministers, military officials, diplomats, and strategic experts from around the world. This year's summit unfolded amid rising geopolitical uncertainty, growing maritime tensions, and increasing military modernization across Asia. Among the most closely watched developments were the exchanges involving China, Japan, and the Philippines, particularly over Beijing's criticism of Tokyo's expanding defense posture and Manila's growing security partnerships with regional allies. Chinese representatives used the summit to express concern over what they described as a return to militarism in the region, focusing much of their criticism on Japan's evolving defense policies and expanding military role. Those remarks quickly triggered strong responses from several countries attending the summit, especially Japan and the Philippines, both of which cited Beijing's characterization. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. strongly defended regional security cooperation and argued that countries should not be criticized simply for improving their ability to defend themselves amid changing security conditions. Philippine officials stressed that modern security realities, rather than historical accusations, should guide discussions about regional defense and military cooperation. According to Manila, countries across the Indo-Pacific have the sovereign right to strengthen defensive capabilities, modernize security forces, and cooperate with allies in order to preserve peace and stability. The debate unfolded against the backdrop of growing tensions in the South China Sea, where territorial disputes continue to shape diplomatic and military discussions across the region. The Philippines has repeatedly expressed concern over activities taking place in waters it considers part of its exclusive economic zone under International. China, meanwhile, continues to defend its territorial claims and rejects international rulings that challenge Beijing's position. At the summit, Japanese officials also strongly pushed back against China's accusations. Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Koizumi rejected claims of new militarism and instead pointed toward China's own military modernization and expansion efforts. Koizumi emphasized that Japan's defense policies remain rooted in post-war principles, transparency, international law, and peaceful engagement while responding to growing regional security challenges. One of the most widely discussed moments at the summit came when Japanese officials highlighted concerns about the broader military balance in Asia. There is a country that has a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons and strategic bombers, Japanese officials said during discussions at the summit. The statement reflected Tokyo's argument that conversations about regional security should examine all military developments across the Indo-Pacific, rather than focusing only on Japan's changing defense posture. Philippine representatives appeared to support the broader message that countries facing evolving security risks should be allowed to strengthen defensive capabilities without automatically being labeled militaristic. For Manila, the issue extends far beyond political terminology. Philippine officials increasingly describe the regional security environment as complex and unpredictable, shaped by strategic competition, maritime disputes, military modernization, and geopolitical uncertainty involving both major and middle powers. In recent years, the Philippines has significantly expanded defense cooperation with partners, including the United States, Japan, Australia, and several Indo-Pacific nations. These partnerships have included joint military exercises, maritime patrol coordination, information sharing, humanitarian cooperation, capability development programs, and modernization. On efforts designed to improve military readiness and maritime awareness, Philippine officials repeatedly insisted that these initiatives are defensive in nature and aimed at preserving peace and regional stability rather than provoking confrontation. Security cooperation should not automatically be interpreted as aggression, Philippine representatives stressed during summit discussions. Throughout the Shangri-La Dialogue, conversations repeatedly returned to the issue of deterrence and strategic balance across the Indo-Pacific. Several delegates argued that closer cooperation among like-minded nations has become increasingly important as strategic competition intensifies across the region. The Philippines consistently emphasized the importance of international law, freedom of navigation, sovereign rights, and peaceful dispute resolution as guiding principles for regional security. At the same time, concerns also emerged regarding divisions among allies and partners. Security officia Alice warned that disagreements or lack of coordination among regional nations could weaken stability at a time when multiple challenges are emerging simultaneously. The South China Sea remained one of the dominant themes throughout the conference. Philippine leaders reiterated that maritime rights established under international law must be respected and protected. Manila continues to assert that parts of the South China Sea fall within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone under international maritime law. China, however, maintains its own sweeping territorial claims and has repeatedly rejected international rulings challenging Beijing's position. These disputes have fueled years of diplomatic friction, public debate, and increasingly tense maritime encounters involving Coast Guard vessels, fishing fleets, and military patrols. Recent developments near Scarborough Shoal further intensified regional attention on the issue. Chinese Coast Guard and military patrols operating near disputed waters prompted strong reactions from Philippine officials, who described the situation as part of an ongoing challenge to Philippine sovereignty and maritime rights. China defended its actions by insisting that patrols were intended to protect what Beijing considers its territory and national interests. Against this backdrop, Philippine officials argued that criticism of regional defense cooperation ignores the practical realities faced by countries dealing with maritime pressure and growing security concerns. Countries have the right to strengthen their defensive capabilities and cooperate with partners in order to maintain stability and protect national interests, Philippine officials stated during summit discussions. The Shangri-La Dialogue has long served as one of Asia's most influential security forums and a major platform for direct and often difficult conversations on regional security issues. This year's gathering proved no different. Leaders and delegates led speeches, panel discussions, and bilateral meetings to outline competing visions for the future of the Indo-Pacific. Discussions range from military modernization and defense spending to cyber resilience, emerging technologies, supply chain security, maritime deterrence, and strategic stability. For the Philippines, the summit provided an important opportunity to reinforce its message that regional security must remain rooted in international law and mutual respect. Philippine officials argued that stability requires not only continued dialogue, but also consistent adherence to sovereign rights and legal principles. The sharp exchanges surrounding China's criticism of Japan also reflected broader disagreements over historical narratives and regional memory. Chinese officials have frequently referenced the legacy of World War II and historical experiences when discussing Japanese security reforms. Japanese representatives, however, argued that modern Japan has followed a fundamental different path focused on peaceful engagement, economic cooperation, transparency, and international partnership. At the summit, Japanese officials insisted that current defense reforms are responses to modern security conditions rather than attempts to revive past militarism. They pointed to a rapidly changing strategic environment marked by missile programs, military modernization, strategic competition, cyber threats, and rising geopolitical tensions across the Indo-Pacific. Philippine officials appeared to share the view that today's security decisions should be judged according to present realities rather than historical labels. According to Manila, countries confronting evolving risks must retain the ability to make independent decisions regarding national defense and strategic cooperation. Observers at the summit noted that the exchanges reflected a broader regional trend. Many countries across Asia are increasing defense budgets, modernizing military capabilities and strengthening security ties in response to growing uncertainty about the future balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. Governments throughout the region frequently describe these efforts as necessary responses to changing strategic conditions and geopolitical instability. Despite the sharp disagreements visible during the summit, many leaders also emphasized the importance of maintaining open communication channels to avoid misunderstandings and reduce the risk of escalation. The Philippines continue to advocate diplomacy alongside deterrence. While maintaining firm positions on sovereignty and maritime rights, Manila stressed that peaceful engagement and dialogue remain essential for managing disputes and preventing escalation. Another issue drawing attention during the summit was the limited direct engagement between certain senior defense officials. Japanese representatives expressed disappointment that opportunities for high-level dialogue were restricted, while also stressing that community caveat remains critical even during periods of disagreement. The Philippines echoed similar themes, arguing that diplomacy must continue regardless of political tensions or strategic rivalry. Across the summit, one message repeatedly emerged from many participating countries. Stronger security cooperation should not automatically be viewed as a threat. Instead, many officials described regional partnerships as part of a broader effort to maintain balance, confidence, deterrence, and stability in an increasingly uncertain geopolitical environment. As the Shangri-La Dialogue concluded, discussions continued regarding the future direction of Indo-Pacific security and the growing competition shaping the region. Major questions remain unresolved. How can rising powers and smaller nations coexist peacefully while pursuing competing strategic interests? How can countries strengthen deterrence without increasing the risk of escalation? And how can regional stability be maintained amid intensive geopolitical rivalry? Those questions are expected to remain central to future diplomatic and security discussions across Asia. For the Philippines, the summit reinforced its commitment to defending national interests while expanding cooperation with regional and international partners. Philippine officials made clear that they reject efforts to portray these partnerships as militaristic. Instead, Manila views defense cooperation as an essential part of safeguarding sovereignty, improving preparedness, and preserving regional stability. The exchanges of the Shangri-La Dialogue demonstrated that debates over defense, security, and regional order remain far from settled. At the same time, the summit also highlighted the continuing value of dialogue itself. Even when disagreements become sharp, forums such as the Shangri-La Dialogue provide opportunities for leaders to explain policies, challenge competing narratives, and search for areas of common understanding. As regional dynamics continue to evolve, the Philippines is expected to remain an active participant in shaping Indo-Pacific security discussions. Philippine leaders continue to argue that international law, open communication, and responsible cooperation provide the most effective path toward long-term peace and stability. The debate over China's accusations and the responses from Japan and the Philippines may have dominated headlines, but the broader story extends far beyond a single exchange of words. Across the Indo-Pacific, governments are grappling with rapid strategic change, shifting alliances, military modernization, maritime disputes, and growing uncertainty surrounding the future balance of power. Every country in the region faces its own priorities, concerns, and security challenges. The central challenge moving forward will be finding ways to manage those differences while preserving peace, economic growth, and regional stability. The Shangri-La Dialogue once again demonstrated why it remains one of the world's most influential security forums. It provided a platform where competing visions for Asia's future could be presented openly before a global audience, and where difficult questions about sovereignty, security, and regional order could be debated directly. For the Philippines, the message delivered at the summit was unmistakable: security cooperation, defensive preparedness, and support for international law should not be mistaken for militarism. Philippine officials insisted that nations have the right to protect their interests, strengthen partnerships, and contribute to regional stability while continuing to pursue peaceful dialogue. As attention now shifts beyond Singapore, the issues raised during the summit are expected to continue shaping regional diplomacy in the months ahead. Maritime disputes, military modernization, strategic competition, and defense cooperation will remain central issues across the Indo-Pacific. The Philippines, China, Japan, and other regional powers are likely to remain at the center of these discussions as governments attempt to balance national interests with the broader goal of maintaining peace and stability in one of the world's most strategically important regions.